We have Kali'i Akina, last but not least, Grassroot Institute, our partner in this program. And he's really done amazing things with Grassroot Institute. He's learned so much, done so much. It's a wonderful thing to watch his star rise. Warm welcome for Kali'i Akina.
Well, thank you very much, Jay. One of the most important areas in which we need to demonstrate leadership is showing that Hawaiians can and do achieve. And the truth is that the Hawaiians who are on the table, and in one sense we're all Hawaiians, but those of us who have a certain ethnicity here on this table have been privileged to be able to achieve. And we're not really all that few and far behind. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. I was raised in a Hawaiian Chinese family, so I guess I'm of two cultures, but I never learned Chinese growing up. I'm come from a family where very few people had education. At that time when I was growing up, nobody had a college degree, nobody had an advanced degree, and we were the poor Akinas. You heard about the rich Akinas who went to Punahou? You know, Dr. Akina and so forth. That wasn't us. We were the Kali'i Akinas who came from the Big Island. I learned almost everything from my mom. She didn't have a high school diploma, but she wanted her children to get education, the kind that Uncle Oz talked about. And one day, my teacher at Wahiawa Elementary School sent home a note saying that I spoke too much pidgin and she better do something about it. So she sat me on her knee and made me read from the Little Red Reader, See Tom Run, See Tom Chase the Ball. And I would sit there every afternoon in tears as she said, express yourself. And I really have to say that this little Hawaiian lady was responsible for me being able to get into Kamehameha, become the state champion debater, win national tournaments, and go on and earn a PhD both in Western and Asian philosophy. And I'm not trying to bring attention to myself. I really am not. I'm trying to say that for my mother, that was a fulfillment of our family values, that each generation would achieve through education. I learned my Hawaiian culture from my tutu lady, and one of the most valued possessions I have is her Hawaiian Baibalo Hemolele, the Hawaiian Bible. And I also learned at Kamehameha, and I'm so blessed to have had a close relationship with Auntie Winona Beamer, the mother of Keola and Kapono Beamer. She allowed me to become the chanter for her hula halau and learn the ancient body of Hawaiian chant, from which I learned the narratives. I learned what Hawaiians told each other, and this influenced me from an early time. She taught me the story of Manono. E manono la ea, e manono la ea, e ue, e ue. Manono was the wife of Keku Okalani. He was one of the fiercest of warriors. And in a very important battle in Kuamo'o in Kona in 1819, he faced one of the most challenging times in his life. Kauka ope ope, kaulu halala ea, ae hoe. Take up your burden, Manono. She saw her husband fall to the ground. She had been there with him, bringing food, taking care of his needs. And when he fell, she grabbed his spear, and then she fought on. Huli mahi ohela mohe kahua auve auve ahe oe. As she fought, she herself became one of the fiercest warriors in Hawaiian history. But she fell on that day. She rested and went into eternity with her husband. She knew that on that day she could have entered into a new narrative, which is to become the slave wife of a foreign chief, that her children would be taken or killed. She knew that her people would have a story of being victims, but she refused to make that her narrative. Instead, on that day, she demonstrated a true Hawaiian narrative. And that is the narrative that we shall overcome, that we are victors. She understood the value of achievement and conquest. Her husband, something I learned as a little boy from Mike Tutu, kulia ikanu'u, strive to reach the summit, achievement. And in addition to that, she worked very hard. My maka'ui kahana, maka'ui kamolova, as my tutu would tell me, don't fear work, fear laziness. Two extremely important values that don't get translated when people think about the terrible, ugly term, lazy Hawaiian. The Hawaiian narrative is one of achievement. It is one of labor. And this is what we need to tell our young Hawaiians. This is what we need to tell everyone in our culture. For Manono, there was no victimization narrative. And as I have studied the narratives of the ancient Hawaiians, the ancient oli, the chants, the mele that came from that, yes, there are stories of wars and battles and people winning and some people losing, but there is no identity that says we are victims. There is no identity that says that we have oppressors and that we are utterly defeated by that. Unfortunately, in the 1970s and 80s, with the wonderful rise of the Hawaiian Renaissance in music and culture, which has blessed everyone, a narrative came to us from across the world that has often described colonial peoples. And that was the victimization narrative, that we Hawaiians are defined by the fact that we were defeated, that we have had our land stolen, and that we have conquerors over us. Now, today, my purpose is not to debate the truth or falsehood of that. And it's likely that it's not, is it true or is it not true, but how true is it? But putting that aside, there's a more important question that I always raise when I address young Hawaiians, and that is, how productive is it to take that as our only identity, the victim narrative? There are so many more powerful narratives that could drive our lives. There are so many more powerful narratives that honor the past but look to the future. The victimization narrative serves several functions. First of all, it is used by some to rationalize why we don't have success as Hawaiians. But I think we need to look at the statistical data there. One Hawaiian kupuna told me, Keli'i, most of us Hawaiians are mostly something else. And people may not see that that Chinese businessman is part Hawaiian, or that Caucasian businessman is part Hawaiian. Because part of the success of the Hawaiian gene pool is that it has spread all over. Hawaiians are amongst the most successful people. The victimization narrative blames others for our condition. It divides society between victims and victors. And here I'm not trying to say there isn't any truth to the troubles that Hawaiians have faced. I'm trying to say that we not only look to the past, but we reach into the future. And we need a narrative, I would suggest, changing our narrative to one in which we are leaders, alakai, leading society in every way possible, as my esteemed colleagues on this table are doing. One in which we are achievers, and one in which we preserve the aloha spirit. And part of that preservation is to proclaim that not only do those whose ancestors were here before Captain Cook belong in these islands, but all newcomers, all malahini who have come here. Auntie Nona also taught me the aloha oli, the aloha chant to welcome people here. Part of it says, "O ta'u no ia, ea no ine, ea li'ane ho'i o Tahiti mai." She said, "Ho'i o Tahiti mai," coming from a far place. She said that's the definition of everyone in Hawaii, and what binds us together. That whether our ancestors were here before or have just come from a far place, we have all come from a far place. My encouragement to young Native Hawaiians today is the key to our advancement is to change the narrative. Look to the future. Kulia ikanu'u, strive to reach the summit.
As an American, we have so many opportunities that we can take advantage of. We have so many people that we interrelate to. We belong to a nation of many, many different perspectives and types. But never think that somebody whose home has been stolen should not be angry because he is Hawaiian, and therefore ought to be expressing aloha every second of the day. So, what we are dealing with are human beings. Human beings who feel threatened. See, it's not a matter of being victimized when you're threatened, is whether or not you have the courage to stand up and say no more. That's another way of looking at all of this. Why should I, because everybody says I ought to act like the Hawaiians standing at Waikiki smiling, have to put up with something I don't agree with? Why should I put a Hawaiian institution like Kamehameha Schools in jeopardy? Or the Native Hawaiian Homes Program when there is so little left? So another way of looking at young Hawaiians today is not that they are acting as victims, but they are acting as warriors. See? Hawaiians are people. They are not noble savages.
Thank you, Governor Waihee. I appreciate your mana'o, as always. And I appreciate the fact that you're the leader of a movement of people who are trying to stand up for self-determination. That's very important. I'm sure that you would share with me concern over those who may take the narrative of victimization and use it as an excuse. I know that you haven't in your life and wouldn't encourage that. There was a television broadcast from one of the news stations interviewing a young man who had been arrested for breaking into a convenience store. He was probably about 23 years old. And when he was interviewed, he told the news reporter the reason he broke into it was that he had been traumatized by the Hawaiian overthrow. and again, I know you wouldn't condone that and so forth, but I think that while there are some individuals who understand that there is political value to the narrative of victimization, the majority of Native Hawaiians, like the gentleman who stood here, Al Gonzalez, would say that they don't consider that somebody had stolen their home or their land and so forth. That their journey through life has been no different than perhaps Jews who went through an atrocity, or Native or African Americans, or the Japanese who were interned, or the Chinese who had the laws against them, or this Australian lady over here who experienced poverty and not having a silver spoon. That we actually have something very much in common with a great many people. And I think that the surveys show the fact that most Native Hawaiians see our commonality with other people in trying to move ahead. But I do thank you for your mana'o.
I think the governor is absolutely right. I mean, and that's why I said the overthrow issue has to be addressed. It has to be resolved. There is an issue of a morality to that, and the Hawaiians are waiting for that answer. And for the United States government to apologize for being a part of the overthrow and do nothing about it, and burden the state with the obligation to resolve that issue by themselves is wrong. It needs to be addressed.
If I could just respond briefly to Uncle Oz, just love all you've done in your commitment, and you have helped to address it. But I think that in comparison to other groups that have suffered greatly, it is only the Native Hawaiians who have several things. First, the 1920 law allows homestead land. Other groups can't have that because of their ethnicity. Secondly, we have a portion of the ceded lands. Third, we have federal entitlements and grants. Fourth, we have the elite trusts, such as the $12 billion estate of Kamehameha Schools that educates tens of thousands. There are Micronesians who came here because they thought the federal government had entitlements for them and learned that that's clearly not the case. And I just want to point out that you are right to say justice should be done. But reparation has been made in an extraordinary way with these benefits. The problem is not the absence of the resources, but the fact that sadly they have been mismanaged, misused, inappropriately appropriated. The Hawaiian homelands is the fourth largest land estate. Kamehameha is the largest landowner. And that's an incredible amount of wealth.
Well, the Hawaiian homelands belong to the Hawaiians. So that was not a gift.
Well, the elite may have owned land, but the commoners didn't.
The United States government, in participating, if you know the history of it, the reason the United States government participated in the overthrow is because Teddy Roosevelt was Undersecretary of Navy at the time, and he wanted Pearl Harbor, and because the king would not give it to him, but allowed him to use it. But that wasn't good enough. He wanted to own it, and that's what happened. So he participated with President McKinley, who, of course, Cleveland was the president at the time, but his term was going to be over soon, and McKinley was going to succeed him. And so he played his cards so that he can get Pearl Harbor, as he did. And along with that, he's got Schofield, Shafter. All of these lands belong to the government, and it belongs to the kingdom. And it was taken. Everybody knows that. They admit to it. It's proven that it was taken. So that issue cannot go away until you deal with the people that have lost that.